Thank you, Doreen. Thank you, Doreen. It's good to be with you this morning. Some of you, you're all invited to come next week, and this is my introduction, so it's not a notice. To come next Monday, a week on Monday, to our house between 2 and 5 to celebrate my 70th birthday. Now, a lot of people have been coming to me and saying, Stuart, you don't look 70. Some of them said I looked 80, but never mind. Most of them said, what's the secret of your skin condition and how you look? And I said, well, I haven't said this to anybody, but I'm going to share my secret with you this morning. My secret is why my skin looks so good and I look so handsome is because every morning I wash my face with Pear's soap. And on a night, I wash my face with Pear's soap before I go to bed. It's as simple as that. Now, Pear's soap isn't expensive. These were left over from some jumble sale somewhere. I think we've got about 6 in the cupboard. And so it's nice. It's got a nice smell to it. So there you go. For a small price, I'll happily share some of my Pear's soap with you if you feel it. So there you go. So, we don't really need to spend an awful lot of money. Although, the Trumpet Will Call is our title today. There we go. We don't need to spend a lot of money on our cosmetics, although a lot of people do. And it's estimated, I can't see that screen, but this one here, it's estimated that women, by the year 2030, will spend 309, this is worldwide, mind, not just in the Northeast, 309 billion pounds on aging products to make their faces look better. But I've got some good news for you because I found this advert for a Boots product, right? And this Boots product is only £10. It's an anti-aging cream. It's probably gone up a bit since this was published, probably £12 or £15 now. But it takes years off you. So if you're worrying about getting old, you need this Boots product. It takes years off you. It was recorded the cream sold in Boots nationwide has earned top marks for its fan base due to its value and instant effects, reports the Daily Record. One shopper even claimed that Boots Collagen Day Cream SPF 30 has helped her skin in just 24 hours. Can you believe that? Eh? Yeah? And I'm not going to look around now and look at anybody in particular and say maybe you need to go and buy some of this cream, because that would be very insulting when you're probably already spending a lot of money on some expensive product. So people are concerned about them looking older. Some people are also concerned about what will happen when they die. And one man has spent £160,000 to be cryogenically frozen so he can live again in the future. There you go. In the moments after Mike Carter is declared dead, there'll be no time to lose. By the time this retired engineer takes his final breath, there'll be a group of people who will be at his bedside, ready to whir into action. His family will be by his side. Depending on the circumstances and location, a nurse or doctor will be nearby. When the Welshman dies, a team of volunteers from all around the UK will descend with haste onto his resting place. If all goes to plan, they'll be there for days before he dies, swapping work shifts and skipping holidays to ensure they don't miss the pivotal moment. That's because for them, the first moments after death are vital. As soon as the father of two is officially declared dead, the group will waste no time in putting his body on life support. Their aim, after all, is to make sure oxygen continues to flow, preventing any irreversible brain damage from taking place. In reality, it's the first step in a journey which will continue for dozens, if not hundreds of years, ending if and when technology becomes available to reanimate his body. Until that time, Mike will stay in a cylinder of minus 196 degrees liquid nitrogen, thousands of miles away. Anybody up for that? Anybody got £160,000 to spend? No? Nobody fancy that? No? Not to worry. Paul had something to say about our spiritual bodies, about what our heavenly bodies are going to be like. And we're going to read about it in Corinthians. Now, I'll just make a little apology because it follows on from Tim's reading last week, the resurrection of the dead, and it comes to the resurrection of the body. And so far through, it will mention the trumpet sound. But because it's God's holy word, we're not going to have the trumpet sound during the reading, okay? We might have it later on. Right. So here we go. I do apologize. There's a lot of words, and a lot of it is, as John and I discussed during the week, is quite dense. Is that right, John? It's dense teaching from Paul here. So the resurrection body. But someone may ask, how are the dead raised? With what kind of body will they come? How foolish. What you sow does not come to life unless it dies. When you sow, you do not plant the body that will be, but just a seed, perhaps of corn or of something else. But God gives it a body as he has determined, and to each kind of seed he gives its own body. All flesh is not the same. Men have one kind of flesh, animals have another, birds have another, and fish another. There are also heavenly bodies, and there are earthly bodies. But the splendor of the heavenly bodies is one kind, and the splendor of the earthly bodies is another. The sun has one kind of splendor, the moon another, and the stars another, and the stars differ from star in splendor. So will it be with the resurrection of the dead. The body that is sown is perishable. It is raised imperishable. It is sown in dishonor. It is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness. It is raised in power. It is sown a natural body. It is raised a spiritual body. If there is a natural body, there is also a spiritual body. So it is written, the first man, Adam, became a living being, the last Adam, a life-giving spirit. The spiritual did not come first, but the natural, and after that, the spiritual. The first man was of the dust of the earth, the second man from heaven. As was the earthly man, so we are those who are of the earth, and as is the man from heaven, so also are those who are of heaven. And just as you have been born the likeness of the earthly man, so shall we bear the likeness of a man from heaven. I declare to you, brothers, the flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God, nor does the perishable inherit the imperishable. Listen, I tell you a mystery. I like this bit. We will not all sleep, but we will all be changed. In a flash, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet, for the trumpet will sound. The dead will be raised imperishable, and we will be changed. For the perishable must clothe itself with the imperishable, and the mortal with immortality. When the perishable have been clothed with the imperishable, and the mortal with immortality, then the saying that is written will come true. Death has been swallowed up in victory. Where, O death, is your victory? Where, O death, is your sting? The sting of death is sin, and the power of the sin is the law. But thanks be to God, he gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. Therefore, my dear brothers, stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain. I think I deserve applause for reading that. It's a real tongue. It's, it's a real tongue twister, isn't it? And nobody would like to have that as a test to read what it is. So I'm going to try and unpack that a little bit if I can, because it's almost like it's a bit of a tongue twister, isn't it, to get your head round. Christian people have speculated for years as to what we will look like when we get to heaven. What does the heavenly body appear like? What will it be? Are we stellar selves of when we were 22, full health, dark hair, and doggone good looks? Or are we 70-year-olds with clogged arteries, artificial joints, white hair under the halo? That's if we have any hair at all. Or what about the dear little child who's died as a child? Does he get an adult body? Or does he get a heavenly body? Or is he a child for eternity? What about someone who's had several wives or husbands? Who will they be married to in heaven? All those questions have been raised and discussed for generations. And Paul was trying to give an answer that would satisfy all those questions. Paul was pretty much saying, he said, they're foolish questions to have. There you go. So if you've been thinking those questions, Paul would say you're foolish. We can't know it. Even if we can't see it, we probably can't describe something so totally other. I remember once when I was just, I think 14 or 15, I've saved up and I bought, I think it cost me £15, a reel-to-reel tape recorder. Anybody else have a one? Yeah? They were just like an amazing invention, weren't they? And I took it out to my grandmother Hann's house, and I thought, I'll have a bit of fun, so I recorded them. And this is what she said. Hey, our Stuart, how does this work? And then I've got that recorded, actually. I've had it transferred onto a CD, which is still out of date now, isn't it? Because without David. But for me to now explain to my grandmother Han how a phone works and say, look, Gran, you can look at somebody and talk to somebody on the other side of the world with clarity without much sound delay. I still don't understand how that works either. She'd be going, hey, I was Stuart a few times, I think. And my granddad Copeland, he liked new cars. He always had a new Ford Anglia. He was the first person in Durham to get the Ford Anglia with a slopey back window. It was 822 GPT, I remember that. Right? Now, if I explained to him now he could be driving a car that would drive itself, we still don't quite believe that, do we? But it's a reality. Cars can drive, and you don't have to wind the window down. You just press a button and the window goes down. Eh? I remember having to stick my hand out because the indicator got stuck and I had to push the indicator back in again. Eh? If we try to explain that to the things that happen now to our grandparents, they would go, oh, you're living in fantasy land, aren't you? And Paul saying, when we get to heaven, something's going to happen that is beyond our understanding. That's beyond our belief now. And we try to put into it our understanding, don't we? We think, well, yeah, we'll be in this nice little room because it says in our Father's house there are many rooms, and maybe I'll have a nice room, and it'll be done out in yellow because I like yellow. Eh? Well, Paul says that's foolish to think like that because God has other plans. What we can do is trust a faithful God. God is always faithful. And all the things he does are awesome, are just amazing. And when we get to heaven, it'll be awesome and amazing. And really, that's all we need to hang on to. Some of us like to know the details, don't we? We can't go anywhere unless we know what it's like. But God says will be awesome in heaven. And that's all we really need to hold on to. And then our heavenly body, it says, will be glorious. It'll be imperishable. For those of you who don't know what that means it never rots and disintegrates. It'll always be there. That's what they said about St. Cuthbert, wasn't it? When they first opened his coffin, his body hadn't deteriorated. Don't know whether that was just folklore, but it was evidenced. But you know, when we think about it, God has been giving things bodies for a lot of years, hasn't he? He's good at giving things bodies. Consider the various bodies he's given. Animals, fish, birds. So many fish that we haven't gone to the depths of the ocean to see some of those amazing luminous fish God created. He's good at creating things. He's created us. You might think, well, he could have done a better job of it, but he's created us. And he's good at creating things. He's good at creating natural things. When we plant a seed, I've got loads of seeds I had planted loads of seeds in the greenhouse. They're all plants. If anybody needs any calendulas, I've got millions of them. I planted far too many seeds. But when we put a seed in the ground, God's made it so that that seed grows. And when we look at the seeds, it's hard to tell, isn't it, what's going to go. We look at a mustard seed, and a mustard seed is one of the biggest plants, but you'd never think it looking at the seed. Isn't that awesome and amazing that we can plant a seed, but what grows looks nothing like the seed, isn't it? It's not. We don't look at a seed and it's got a little implant of what the plant's going to look like. We have to look at the packet to see what it might look like when we plant it. So God has created that. When we look at the stars in the heavens and we just see, and it just amazes me. I just can't imagine other galaxies, other things that go on. I can't imagine that light has taken, sometimes they say the light from that star's taken how many millions of years to reach us. I can't imagine that. But God's created all of that. So if he can do all of that, is he not capable of creating a nice heavenly body for us? Is that not what he's about? That's what he's about. Paul tells us that the earthly body wears out, but the heavenly body won't. It tells us that the earthly body knows embarrassment and all kinds of sinful desires, but the heavenly body will know glory. The earthly body is limited and weak, held captive by the forces of the world, such as disease and aging. But the heavenly body will know power and strength. The earthly body is natural, but the heavenly body will be spiritual. And the truth of this should lead us toward a great sense of hope and an anticipation and comfort. There is an ultimate and final body that should motivate us to have confidence that our earthly labor for the kingdom of God is not futile. Then in verse 58 it says, "Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain." The Greek word for stand firm has this idea of not being moved. Doesn't matter what comes against you. It won't blow you over. It won't force you in a different direction. Let nothing move you. It's the only time it's in the New Testament, when it's in the original translation. It's the only time it's there. And it says, just stand firm and remain faithful to the end. Paul says that in a few other times, in a few other places. He says, run the race, finish the race. Don't be frightened to keep going and complete the race you do. And then that verse I said was my favorite. Listen, I tell you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. They used to have that when we first went to Spring Harvest years ago, Heather, you might remember. They used to put a little sign up, and if a child was crying in one of the chalets, they'd put a little, child crying in chalet, red chalet 51, and the parents would have to go and sort the child out. And then outside the creche it had, they will not all sleep, but they will all be changed. Which really has nothing to do with this, but it was nice. It says, in a flash, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. There you go. For the trumpet It's going to stick in your head there, isn't it? The trumpet will sound, the dead will be raised imperishable, and we will be changed. Hallelujah. We'll be changed in an instant. It's not going to be like a gradual process. We need to go into hospital for 6 months to get changed to our heavenly bodies. It's going to be in an instant. We'll be changed into our heavenly body. For the perishable must clothe itself with imperishability, and the mortal with immortality. Paul mentions a mystery. Not everyone will die. When Jesus returns to earth, there'll be people who are still alive and won't have to die first. But all who believe in Jesus will be changed, whether if they died or not. Those who did not die will just change into their new bodies. So, it's hard for us to imagine, isn't it? We're kind of being brought up to think that one day we'll come into a room, and if we're following Christ, we'll have been gone to heaven. And there's always that fear that we walk into a room and there's nobody there, and we're the only one who's been left behind. Life was filled with guns and war. I wish we'd all been ready. Doesn't it? That song goes on, doesn't it? And say. But it says those people, if we're still alive, if the trumpet sounded today, just making sure Sean's still awake, you see, he was just drifting off there. He was probably lost in theological thought, I guess, really. If the trumpet sounded today, those of us who... if that thing that makes a noise sounded today, we know we'll be changed instantly. We'd have our heavenly body. We'd be gone. And we'd have our straight away when that thing blows the horn and we hear the thing go. It won't be a gradual change. And it says, the twinkling of an eye or the blinking of an eye. And that day will be instantly changed, renewed, restored, and made perfect. The perishable will be clothed, and death will be dead. I read that several times and thought, and death will be dead. And it's a funny thing to say, isn't it? You wouldn't normally say death will be dead, but that's what it's saying, isn't it? Death will be no longer there. Death itself will be dead, will be non-existent, will be gone. Death will be dead when that thing sounds in the sky. We're getting near the end now. You're going to be sitting having your dinner, and that thing's going to be sounding in your ear. Where, O death, is your victory? Where, O death, is your sting? Last week we remembered that because Jesus rose from the dead, death was extinguished. And we've moved on because Jesus rose from the dead, death was extinguished, and your place is in heaven. You have a place there, a place prepared for you. And as I said earlier, it might not be a room that we kind of imagine, but it's a place, and it'll be an amazing place to be with an awesome God who loves each one of us. But I love the way at the end Paul doesn't just leave it at that. He doesn't just leave it at the teaching. He says, because of that, there is something you need to be doing. He says, you need to be standing firm, but you need to be getting on with my work. You need to be telling other people. You need to be going on and doing what I've called you to do. That's the motive for you. I've prepared everything else. The plan's in place. All of creation's ready for you. Your earthly body is already designed and shaped and ready for you. And you just need to get on with the work. Paul said in one of his things there, he said, if I died tomorrow, I would begin in heaven. If I don't die tomorrow, it'll take a bit longer, but I'll begin in heaven one day to be with the Lord. And we've got work to do. We've got, we're looking forward to getting in the new building. It's getting closer every week. I know we say that, but it is. And then we've got a work to do to just build the kingdom and let more people know that there's a body in heaven for them. Now, it's such a big subject. I'm sure you've all got lots of questions that you think, maybe if you don't want to ask any questions now because Paul said they were foolish questions. But it's good if you just we're going to have 2 minutes, that's all, just a quick chat with each other about maybe what our view of heaven has changed by what I've said today. Maybe my view's changed as I've been studying this week. But just have a chat, 2 minutes. But just think about what heaven's going to be like, and in the light of what we've looked at the word today. Okay? 2 minutes chat, that's all. With a person beside you, or if you want to move, that's fine.